You have seen 1,000 videos about how many people Genghis Khan killed. This is not that video. This is about what he built and why history chose to forget it. 1 in every 200 men alive on Earth today is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. This number is not a myth. It is a footprint, pressed into the living present. Before maps drew his lineage, this horizon drew his ambition. Wind over grass, cold light, a silence older than any flag. From this emptiness, a name would travel farther than any army. Remember this place, the origin behind the statistic, the land that forged the lineage to come. Not 1 in a million, not 1 in 10,000, 1 in 200. Geneticists confirm this in a landmark study. Approximately 16 million living men carry his direct genetic line. No other human being in the history of the world comes close to that number. He did not just conquer the world, he is literally still in it. But here is what the 1,000 videos about Genghis Khan never told you. The killing is not his most extraordinary achievement. What he built is. Temujin was born around 1162 on the Mongolian steppe. His father was poisoned by enemies when he was 9 years old. His own tribe abandoned his family immediately after, left them to die on the steppe with nothing. He spent his childhood in poverty. He was kidnapped and enslaved. He escaped. He built alliances, one relationship at a time, and by 1206 he had united every warring tribe on the Mongolian plateau under a single authority. They gave him a title, Genghis Khan, universal ruler. What he did next took 25 years. In that time, he built the largest contiguous empire in human history. Larger than Rome, larger than Alexander, twice as large as any empire any individual had ever built, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, from Siberia to the Persian Gulf. And then he did something that no one who knew only the killing part of his story would ever expect. He built something inside it. He was the first ruler in many of the countries he conquered to place the power of law above his own power. At a time when kings across Europe ruled by divine right and answered to no one, Genghis Khan created a legal code that applied equally to everyone, including himself. He granted complete religious freedom across his entire empire. Buddhist monks, Muslim imams, Christian priests, Taoist scholars. All of them were not only tolerated, but protected. All religious leaders and their institutions were exempt from taxation and from military service. At a time when Europe was burning people alive for their beliefs, Genghis Khan was hosting interfaith debates in his court. He abolished torture throughout his empire. He abolished inherited aristocratic titles. Under Genghis Khan, it did not matter who your father was. What mattered was what you could do. His greatest general, Subutai, was the son of a blacksmith. Ability was the only currency that counted. He granted diplomatic immunity to all foreign ambassadors and envoys, including those from nations he was actively at war with. The principle that diplomats should be protected, regardless of the political relationship between their countries. A principle so fundamental to modern international relations that it now forms the basis of the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations. That principle began with Genghis Khan. He created the first international postal system in history, a network of relay stations stretching across the entire empire where fresh horses waited at regular intervals so that messages and goods could travel up to 200 miles in a single day. Marco Polo described it decades later as one of the greatest achievements he had ever witnessed. He took the scattered, disconnected trading posts along the Silk Road and unified them into the largest free trade zone in human history. For the first time, merchants could travel from China to Europe under a single legal authority that protected them and their goods the entire way. At the time of his birth in 1162, no one in China had ever heard of Europe. No one in Europe had ever heard of China. No person was known to have made the journey from one to the other. By the time of his death in 1227, he had connected them permanently. The trade routes he built, the diplomatic contacts he established, The communication systems he created, they never closed. They still exist in different forms today. Historians have described what Genghis Khan built inside his empire as the nucleus of a universal culture and world system, with an emphasis on free commerce, open communication, shared knowledge, secular politics, religious coexistence, international law, and diplomatic immunity. Those are not the words of a monster. Those are the founding principles of the modern world. He did all of this with an army that at its largest never exceeded 100,000 men, a number that would fill a large sports stadium. With that army, he built something that took the Roman Empire 400 years to build. In 25 years, when he died in 1227, the exact circumstances of his death were concealed. He had requested to be buried quietly with no markers and no monuments. His burial place has never been found. The man who built the largest empire in history left the world the same way he had entered it, without a trace, but the world he left behind is still here. 16 million of his descendants are alive right now. The diplomatic immunity that protects every ambassador in every country on earth traces its origins to his law. The free trade principles that underpin the global economy have roots in what he built along the Silk Road. The idea that the law applies equally to rulers and to ordinary people. That merit matters more than birth. That people of different faiths can coexist under the same authority. All of it has a line that runs back to a boy who was abandoned on a step at 9 years old with nothing. History gave you the killing, because the killing is easier to understand. What he built requires you to sit with something more complicated. The most destructive conqueror in human history and the most progressive ruler of his age were the same person.